Hey gang, the Two Black Crows records by Moran and Mack were the most popular comedy series of the 78 RPM era. You may think you've seen them all, you might even think you have them all, but there is one that is actually very rare. I'm going to play it for you today on the 78 RPM channel. Hello, and welcome to the 78 RPM channel. Whether you're new to 78s or an advanced collector, this is your source for information, research, and music about 78 RPM records, cylinders, and radio transcriptions. Hey gang, welcome to the 78 RPM channel. Because these records turn up so often, you probably think you've seen them all, or you may even think you have them all. And you might, but probably not. Let's go back to the beginning. 1927, Moran and Mack record Two Black Crows Parts 1 and 2 for Columbia. It's released and it sells very, very well.
Boy, even if that was good, I wouldn't like it.
Boy, I'd play anything on this.
Yeah, you can't play piano on that.
It sells well enough to where Columbia fairly quickly comes out with Two Black Crows, Parts 3 and 4. And 5 and 6, and 7 and 8. Eventually, on Columbia 1929D, they come out with Foolishments and Esau Buck, which, if you look at international pressings, it says on the label, Two Black Crows, Parts 13 and 14. Why the numbers are not on the American discs, I don't know. But if you follow the order, you can surmise that Two Black Crows in the Jailhouse are Parts 9 and 10. Two Black Crows in Hades are parts 11 and 12. That gives you a 7-disc set that makes a nice, tidy 14-part Two Black Crows series. Somebody's going to mention Columbia 50061, which is a Moran and Mack record that mentions on the label the creators of Two Black Crows. But that's kind of like saying from the director of in a movie trailer. It's not really talking about that movie, it's just trying to get you to watch that movie based on something that's happened before. So while most collectors have Columbia 50061, most of them don't really consider it part of the Two Black Crows set. So, if I have all the 10-inch discs, and maybe even throw the 12-inch disc in there, are we done? Do we have all the Two Black Crows records? No, because there is one, very rare one, that you might not have. Around May of 1928, Moran and Mack entered the Columbia Studios in New York and recorded a personal record, a record that was probably paid for out of their own pocket. And it was Two Black Crows in the AEF. In case you're wondering, the AEF is the American Expeditionary Force of World War I. These are the doughboys, the U.S. guys who went over and fought in World War I under General Pershing. It's this record that is the rarest of the Two Black Crows series. In addition to being a little less entertaining than most of the other Two Black Crows records, this record has a blatant advertisement in it. And that probably is the reason Columbia didn't issue it or didn't even try, and Moran and Mack were required to make it as a personal pressing. So this record is not the best in the Two Black Crows series, but it is definitely the rarest, and I'm going to play it for you. Here are Moran and Mack doing Two Black Crows in the AEF, complete with an advertisement for their book.
Well, Willie Crow, this old crow may be leaving before long.
What for?
Uncle Sam, he ain't doing so good with his fighting, outside ain't. Sure look like they gonna call me up front there to help end all this ruction.
Oh, go on. What's holding you back?
Oh, I don't know. I guess I must have divers' shoes on.
Well, them old suitcases? Or there ain't enough left of them shoes to hold you back.
Willie, you shouldn't talk that way about my shoes because these is patent and leather shoes.
Patent and leather?
Yeah, leather on top and the bare feet patent on the ground.
Boy, you got the biggest and longest feet.
Oh, who?
Oh, you. I bet you have to back up to knock on a door.
Oh, you Alabama owl, you. Don't you know there's a reason for my feet being big like this here?
For what reason?
Well, when I was a small boy, I used to work in the cotton fields that they fertilized with nitrates. And don't you know those nitrates just naturally developed my feet? And my Aunt Jane, she weighs 350 pounds, and Grandpa, he say maybe she must have sat down in the nitrates. What you know? Attention, Willie. There's the sergeant. Mobilize yourself.
Doggone, this must be the battleground. Look at all them holes in the pasture. Looks like the ground had a bad case of smallpox. What you reckon makes 'em, Amos?
Well, that's the way the frog farmers plow. Special kind of plow makes all them round holes.
Well, what took 'em to rust off of so many houses?
Boy, ain't your eyes got no connection with your brain at all? Ain't you noticed how all the trees alongside the road is bent and busted? Means only one thing. They've had some kind of strong hurricane around here.
Amos, you know so much. What's that put noise?
Why, that's the French whiffet bird.
Well, what's that zipping noise up above our heads like bees buzzing by?
Well, that's what it is, bees. And these there crazy frog bees work day and night, rain and shine, and don't accept leap year.
Hot dog, them bees got velocity. There goes my helmet.
Boy, brace yourself, brace yourself. Here's what hit your helmet.
What is it?
Well, that's a bullet, that's what it is, and I'm going to find me a mess of safety.
Yeah, and then what are you going to do?
Then I'm going to read the rest of that book called Two Black Crows in the AEF, written by Charles Mack of Moran & Mack, the Two Black Crows, and published by Bob's Mail Company of Indianapolis, Indiana. What you know, hmm?
All of the dialogue from that comes directly from the book Two Black Crows in the AEF. And it should be pointed out the book is much easier to find than the record. The book documents the exploits of the Two Black Crows. As they are tricked into joining the army, they are sent overseas as part of the AEF, but then they eventually rescue their comrade with a heroic raid, in spite of the fact they spend most of the book doing everything they can to avoid military life and to not do anything. While the record is very rare, the book is common and it sold well enough to where it was made into a movie. It was originally going to be called Two Black Crows in the AEF, but it was changed to a movie called Anybody's War, which is available today if you look around for it. Unfortunately, if you watch roughly 3 seconds of this film, you're immediately going to be punched in the face by the elephant in the room. And that is that Moran and Mack were blackface comics. Not only in the dialect that they used on the records, but on film in blackface. Collecting 78s requires a level of maturity that allows you to separate ignorance from willful hatred and racism. If you can't do that, 78s probably aren't the collecting medium for you because you're not going to be able to separate things like Al Jolson, Eddie Cantor, and the Duncan sisters from the blatant racist things like 100% Americans, the KKK labels, and the bright fiery cross, which unfortunately, if you junk records long enough, you are going to discover those are real things, those are real record labels. They're also record labels I choose not to collect. Now this is my copy of this disc, and while this disc does not appear on Discogs, much to my surprise, someone uploaded a copy of this disc to YouTube several years ago. Now that copy accounts for what I believe is the 4th copy that I know to exist. Suffice it to say, it's a pretty scarce record. One thing we don't know is how many copies were pressed. I've heard numbers as high as 500. I have heard numbers as low as 50. I don't think the numbers on the 50, the low end of the range, can be accurate. And the reason that I say that, I've never seen paperwork from Columbia that shows that they pressed any disc in a quantity of under 200 copies. It may be a situation where that is either their minimum number, or whether you press 1 copy or 200, the price was the same. My guess is that roughly 20 to 50 copies of this record are still walking the face of the earth somewhere. Again, if we knew how many were made, it would give us a better idea or a better guess as to how many exist. But suffice it to say, if you're trying to complete your Two Black Crows series, this is probably the one that's standing in your way. Thanks for joining me on the 78 RPM channel. We will see you next time.